born, and finally when I got to be 5 years old, I told my parents that I wanted to go to Sunday school. Well, my mother's best friend, who also had been raised a Mormon, but wasn't quite as active, she and her husband offered to take me to Sunday school with their daughter, who was 2 years younger than I was. And so I started going to the Episcopal Church, and I became, I liked it very much as a child, and they still have a lot of nice things about it. But, and then of course when I went to, by the time I got to college, I visited a lot of churches because sometimes my boyfriends would take me to their church or I'd go with friends. So I had a knowledge pretty much of all the churches except for the Mormon church. But this one, Russell Kerr, was the one who introduced me to the church. I was always grateful to him.
What school did you go to when you were little?
Well, I went, the first school I went to was called was 24th Street School. It was on 24th Street, so they called it 24th Street School. And my father used to always come pick me up every noontime, take me home for lunch, and then bring me back to school. So I had only one day a week that I could eat lunch with my friends. And my favorite day was Friday, so I could eat lunch at school and not go home. And I love peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, I remember. And,
well, did he have time to do that every day?
Yes, he took the time.
Well, but wasn't he busy working?
Parents think that they're doing this nice thing, and
he liked to come home to my mother's.
Maybe that was his lunch
So
break.
that was his lunch break every day?
Yes.
Hey Luke,
How
I
far
want you
was
to sit
his
down.
work from your house?
Luke, I'm trying
Well,
to.
it wasn't that far, I guess. I mean,
He had a long lunch break
time.
then.
So,
Oh, Cammie has a question.
yeah.
Cammy does?
And I used to look forward to Friday so that I could eat lunch with my girlfriends. And
Did the other kids go home for lunch every day, or did the other kids go home for lunch too, or?
No,
Just
I
you?
know I had this one little friend that was, she was a Norwegian or Swedish girl, I guess it was. And times were hard, I guess, at that time. And I remember that she, for lunch, she would have a sandwich, and I think all she had on it was just maybe a little butter or something on it, maybe, but nothing much in the sandwich. And so I felt sorry for her. So anyway, she was telling me that she said, well, that her father was her grandfather was the king of Norway. And so I came home and told my mother that my friend's grandfather was the king of Norway. And she said, well, you go back and tell your little friend that your grandfather is the king of the Nevada desert. So I told her. But I used to, but I'd bring my lunch on Friday. That's the only day my mother would let me take a lunch. I'd always share my sandwiches with her because I felt so sorry because she never had anything in the sides then. Maybe just a little mustard. That was what she had. She had just
Mustard sandwich.
bread and white bread and mustard. And that's all she had.
Do you know how many people worked at Grandfather Gilfelden's company when he was the...
No, I don't remember. I know that I went to work
Cammie
in
has
the
to ask her
office.
question before she talks.
Oh, Cammie has a question. Well, you don't remember how many, were there like 100
Sit
people?
down,
Or?
Oh, I'm sure there might have been. Oh, yes, I'm sure. I was in the office, though, and I didn't see all the other people, all the time.
But there was a lot of people that worked there.
And then later, when I went back there and worked, I worked in the security office. And that was
Couldn't help it
interesting.
around so much.
Okay, Cammie, what's your question, Cammie?
What did you like to do when you were little?
What
did you do for fun when you were little?
What was
You
that
missed
again?
that one, Cam.
Yeah, I think we talked about
she
that.
I already
danced,
asked that.
She went to
Movies.
the movies.
Dated Mormon guys.
Wanted to know what you did for fun.
Oh, for
I
fun?
asked
I
that.
never see you these days.
Well,
I already
was
asked
very
that.
close to my cousins that I had from my other uncle and aunt, and I liked to spend time with them. And they had swings and things in their yard, and it was always fun to go and have. And then they had
Check the
bikes
plan
and things.
there,
Well,
it
my
seems
mother
just like
didn't
you.
want me to have a bicycle because we lived on a hill, and and it was a busy street also, so for safety's sake, she didn't want me to have a bicycle, so I didn't realize, of course, that was her reasons, but anyway, my uncle and aunt finally gave me one of their bicycles because they bought their daughters a new bike. And so I was so thrilled to have a bike, but I was coming home from school a few days later, and my mother was talking to this man out in front of the house, and he had my bike in his hand. And I said, "What are you doing? That's my bike." And she gave it to this man because, see, she didn't want me to have it. And it was because, you know, she worried about me riding a bike on a hill. For our
So did
house.
you ever learn how to ride a bike?
Oh, yes, I did.
Did you ever forgive her for that?
Oh, sure.
No, to this day.
Might be tough.
Grudge.
But I was so disappointed when I saw it. But my aunt and uncle would have spoiled me if I, you know, because they spoiled their own